Breaking news. Rafael Devers has been traded to the San Francisco Giants. We're going to break it down on this episode of the Just Baseball Show. It is Monday, June 16th. You got Aram Layton. I am Peter Apple. We're going to go through everything that has to do with this trade. We're going to look at it from the Red Sox side, from the Giants side. And Aram and I already kind of talked about this trade at length a little bit before we press the record button. And we disagree on a few things. So we're going to hash it out. And we're also going to end it with some Omaha takeaways because we are here, as you can see, not a normal background. We're in Omaha, Nebraska for the College World Series. We've seen all the games. So we got a couple of takeaways on some top prospects. And it's all brought to you by the sportsbook born in Vegas. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether that be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JUSTBASEBALL. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first wager loses. But remember, gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Aram, we're not getting the fingers ready because this is not the weekend roundup. Special episode because Rafael Devers was traded to the San Francisco Giants in exchange for left-handed pitcher Kyle Harrison, right-handed pitcher Jordan Hicks, minor league outfielder James Tibbs III, and minor league right-handed pitcher Jose Bayo. But we're going to get into so many things, but give me the play-by-play of your reaction because I left early from the Coastal game. I watched the first game with you guys and then went back. Actually had to deal with a couple of apartment things. I'm moving to Chicago soon. And this news hit. So we weren't together for this. I want to hear your play-by-play.
Yeah. So I just got to the press box and I don't know, like at first, just because the return made it almost seem kind of fake too, like a big leaguer for big leaguer. Because it was Hicks and Harrison and other pieces. So I'm like, oh, maybe this is fake. Like I thought it would be like one of those accounts where it's like the name is like one letter off. Like it was Robert Murray, but like one letter off. But then I clicked on his profile and it was like, oh shit, that's him. So it was kind of like shock that set in. And then even in the press box, like there's a bunch of college baseball people and it was kind of like buzzing in there about it. And yeah, like it was just kind of a crazy thing to process. And I think everyone had the same reaction, even though there was some discussions about potential trade and things like that. It felt like those had kind of cooled, right? Like, so it felt like we were at a point where, okay, Devers is playing at a high level. The Red Sox are playing pretty well. It happened when I think we least expected it. I feel like if it happened a month ago, people may not have been nearly as shocked. I think the timing of it made it just way more shocking for me.
You didn't think the timing was normal on Father's Day, right after he hit home run against the Yankees when they had now swept the Yankees and they've won 8 of their last 10 games? You thought the timing was interesting? I'm shocked. I thought the timing was normal.
Yeah, I mean, it just on top of that, just like getting through the ugliest parts of what we perceive to be at least outwardly the ugliest parts of this whole dispute between the Red Sox and Devers. You figured that once they got through that, it was going to smooth over a little bit. And again, they're rolling. He's playing at a high level. It really did catch me off guard, especially like if it happened on deadline day, like we're braced for anything, right? I think the fact that it happened on June 15th is also the really surprising part. Like you could see it happening maybe when things really started to get, I don't want to say ugly. That's a little bit extreme, but like just get a little bit contentious between the two and some of the things that they were saying, that Devers was saying. But, once you got past that, I figured if we're going to see anything, it would be closer to deadline time if the Red Sox aren't playing well, blah, blah, blah. But for it to happen now is like this weird in between time that that's what really added to the shock factor, I think, for me.
I was completely shocked. I was sitting here and shout out Robert Murray. Mm-hmm. I mean, getting
hell of a scoop. And
before all the big guys, right? He sends it out breaking Rafael Devers has been traded to the Giants. And at first, I think he got hacked. And then a couple minutes later, he has Jordan Hicks in the deal and Kyle Harrison in the deal.
I was waiting for a crypto tweet afterwards, like some sort of like hacked promotion.
And then because it's two big leaguers, I'm thinking to myself, okay, like this guy's hacked. Here comes the crypto tweet, like you said. And then there's this 15-minute period maybe 20, where nobody else is getting back on the story. No Passan, Rosenthal, none of them, right? Nobody is confirming this story. So I quote tweet under my original tweet of it, and I say, no way this is real. And then Passan drops the bomb, and then everything follows suit. And then what starts to happen is more information on why Rafael Devers was traded. So before we move on, should we talk about why Devers was traded first? Or do you want to talk about the package the Giants gave up? Or excuse me, the Giants gave up in order to trade for Rafael Devers. Which one would you rather do first?
We can do the package first, since I guess there's no not gonna be as much back and forth on that, right?
100%.
I mean, Jordan Hicks is a player that I think the Giants are probably just happy to dump a little bit in terms of the salary, $12 million each of the next 2 years after this one. And since they're taking on all of Devers' contract, I can understand that. And from the Red Sox perspective, they may be looking at a guy here that with their pitching infrastructure, they might be able to get him right, or just stick him in the bullpen and hope that he can just be a solid seventh inning guy for them. I think Kyle Harrison is the big get here in their eyes, and I'm curious where you're at here on Harrison, because if you go back to the prospect days, and of course I had him as a top 100 prospect, but he was one of those Caden Danas of the world, and I'm not comparing him to them, but he was one of the names that when I put out the top 100 list, I'll always remember I got the most complaints about. Why is he so low? He's one of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball, and I always just had some concerns. But he has made some improvements this year. You wouldn't see it statistically because he has literally the exact same ERA he had last year, 4.56. But the underlying is better. The fastball is performing way better. We tweeted about that from our main account, and he's still just 23 years old. So before we move on to Tibbs and the other prospect, Jose Bayo, where are you at on Kyle Harrison? I think objectively, with the control that he comes with and everything, and where the Red Sox are at, definitely a great piece to be getting. But where do you kind of see him at, or what do you see him as?
Great piece to get. I did think it was kind of disgusting. I tweeted this out that they immediately sent him down to AAA. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, I know that they have a lot of starters in the rotation, but to trade Rafael Devers and then send the main piece, of course, we're going to talk about Tibbs in a second, but a 23-year-old left-hander down to the minor leagues. I didn't love the optics of that one, but when he does come back up eventually for the Red Sox, I've been pretty consistent with him. Fastball dependent, right? When he is 95 at the top of the zone, I think he can be a very good pitcher. I think he can flash top of the line stuff. But when the fastball starts to subside, right? We saw that in 2024, he almost becomes unusable. But at the same time, he was an unusable 22-year-old. He's 23 years old. I say this, about these young guys all the time, when sometimes even me, I got to remind myself getting on guys so early, right? He got pulled up to the big leagues when he was 21 years old.
Yeah.
And then 22 years old, he has a full season and he wasn't that great. Okay, he's 22, right? We're watching the College World Series right now. Some of the best players in the College World Series are 22. So then 23 years old, the fastball looks a little bit better. This is a guy that I think is going to be a consistent mainstay in the Red Sox rotation. I think it's a solid arm to get. And I'm interested to see what he looks like with Andrew Bailey, with Breslow, with a new development staff. Could they get something else out of him? Maybe that the Giants didn't see. I don't know. So I think he's a very good arm to get. But at the end of the day, you are trading Rafael Devers. James Tibbs better be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're looking at, this is definitely a team that doesn't want to go full rebuild either. And this is just, that's what we'll talk more about that side of things. But I think Harrison being a guy that can help your rotation now, or at least very soon since he's gone to AAA, but and a guy that I think if you get him right, he's still in pre-arb. So but you have 4 years of control. You have 4 years of control after this one. So I think at that point, you're getting 4.5 years of control of a left-handed pitcher here that I think is a great chance to at least be a back end of the rotation starter. But then on top of that, as you mentioned, the fastball, all the underlying is way better this year. Fastball whiff numbers are way up. My biggest concern was the fastball dependency, or dependence in the upper minors before when I was evaluating him as a prospect, and then also kind of just the fluctuations in command. But the command has definitely been significantly better this year too. Between the minor leagues and the major leagues this year, it's only walking 7.5% of hitters. So I think they definitely see something here where maybe they feel like they can push him to being a high end 4, or maybe a little bit more than that. So I like that part of it. Tibbs is a guy that I'm sure they liked out of the draft, and we're hoping to get, and now they're able to add him to the org. I'm sure they scouted him heavily, and he's a borderline top 100 prospect. So I think they got some decent pieces here. And then Jose Bayo, he's a little bit older for the level that he's throwing at, but another guy that you look at the stuff overall, I think there is some interesting aspects to what he's got. But again, that's more of a flyer lotto tickets. See, he's pitching at the complex right now. But it's more, I think, about the conversation of are the Reds, what do the Red Sox do after this, right? Like, we talk about the contract. A lot of people, Jeff Passan surveyed a lot of, I think, front office members across the league. Many of them viewed the contract as kind of underwater, meaning that it's a little bit of, it hurts Devers' value. Like, if you had Devers at, let's say just league average salary, obviously he'd be extremely, extremely valuable. If you put him at, I guess let's say you crowdsourced what his perceived value is and you assigned it based on that. Obviously he'd be significantly more valuable, but with the amount of years and the money that's attached to a guy that's already been relegated to DH, it appears that a lot of front office members across the league don't want to pay a DH that much for that long. So I think with the understanding that the perception is that contract is maybe a slight weight to Devers, that adds an interesting wrinkle to the conversation, especially since they got players back. But again, this isn't like a Giancarlo Stanton salary dump deal either. No. And so that's the interesting back and forth of it. But I think what's really important is, what do they do now from this? Like, if they don't do anything else, if they don't invest that money into other players, then I think Red Sox fans have every right to be upset. But I also think the history of the Red Sox doesn't really earn them the benefit of the doubt, right? Where you trade 100%. A Mookie Betts, you lose a Xander Bogaerts, you lose a Chris Sale, which I get it. Chris Sale, it didn't look like it was going to happen for him there anymore. Xander Bogaerts, you're not topping that insane offer that the Padres made. But the Mookie deal, you should have never done that. And then with those two guys, they just haven't earned themselves as a franchise. John Henry hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt. What did we hear ad nauseum going into this year? We're going to spend. And it kind of did. But then a few months into the season, we're cutting payroll again. So I think if there might be a bigger vision and a bigger plan, they may reinvest it all. But fans have every right to be upset because they tried to show us, we joked about it, right? Oh, you tell us how much you're going to spend this year. Here we go. It was almost theatrical. How open and how many people had scoops about the Red Sox and how they wanted to spend, that you then dump your biggest contract after you did finally spend in an off season. That's the part where I can really understand the Red Sox, fans' frustration.
Two things I want to build on that you were mentioning. One is that Passan quote where he said he pulled, or at least asked, GMs around the league what they thought of his contract, and that it was underwater, that it wasn't exactly a great contract. I mean, who am I? But at the same time, I'm just going to vehemently disagree with those general managers, which is not exactly the side that you want to be on. Like, I'm a pretty smart guy. Am I smarter than the collection of general managers that Jeff Passan interviewed? Absolutely not. But you know what? I'm going to disagree anyway, because what I just saw was Soto signed for $765 million, and he's basically a glorified DH. Now, was that a good contract? Not at all. Did it happen? Yes. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., $500 million. Is that a good contract? Probably not. Now, those guys are 2 years younger. What's Kyle Tucker going to sign for? Excuse me. $500 million probably this offseason at 28 years old. Would I rather have Kyle Tucker than Rafael Devers?
I'd rather have all the players you just mentioned by
100%. Would I rather spend $300 million more? Because what the Giants are now taking over is 8 years for $250. A 28-year-old Devers who is going to hit for a very long time.
Who's already a DH.
I would pay 8 years, $250 million for Devers bats tomorrow. I would. I would bring him into my lineup because right now he is ranked 18th at WRC plus. I think he's going to be a top 25 hitter for the foreseeable future. And it's really hard to get a game-changing bat like that who already has a ring on his resume. So for me, I disagree with the fact that it is just this exorbitant bad contract. I can't agree with that. The second thing, oh no, go ahead.
No. You got another one. Go ahead.
No, the second thing that I was going to talk about too was the fans having the right to be absolutely furious about
no doubt about that.
Because you already mentioned all the, the optics with the Red Sox in the past of how they've traded their superstars and stuff. And I know that they have been talking about this trade now for a few weeks, or at least that's what has been reported as, the drama never seemed to kind of come to a standstill, or at least that's what we thought. I guess it had been, it had been getting worse and worse and worse. But to trade him the day after, or not the day after, an hours after, he hits a home run against Max Fried and they win and they shut out the Yankees. And the Yankees only scored 4 runs that series, which was the lowest in Fenway since 1922. They won 8 of their last 10 games. And they're actually starting to get really good performances from their starting pitchers. And the bats are starting, and Willie Abreu is coming back. And I understand there's a little bit of a logjam there, but when we're talking about logjam, I'm not trying to get Devers out of the lineup. So, and then on top of it, they trade him before a West Coast road trip, so they won't have to even go back and really answer for their crimes at Fenway for about a week and a half. I don't know. I thought it was, and on Father's Day. I thought all of it combined. I know those are really small things, but you add all these small things together, and I think it makes for an optics nightmare for the Red Sox. Now, it would have been an optics nightmare anyway, trading Rafael Devers. I just feel like all of these little things made it even worse when it's already a horrible situation for Red Sox fans.
Well, and the thing that I will understand, like that I think is more than valid, is that, the Red Sox and I think the miscommunication, and I think the poor transfer of powers from Chaim Bloom to Abreu to kind of make sure that, and I think some of that lays on John Henry, but like make sure that things are being communicated in a certain way and that this didn't happen, right? Like I think clearly certain things were told to Devers by Chaim Bloom and co. And then those same sentiments were not echoed and believed by Greg Breslow and co. And so when you sign a $300 million contract with the team that brought you up, I think you expect the team to treat you with a certain level of respect and care and not ragdoll you a little bit. So I do understand how that can create some frustration for Devers. But at the same time, I think Devers was a little bit immature with the whole thing, and I think fanned the fire, but I think the team ultimately like created this issue and made it worse. And then I think you had to know who you were working with here too. I think they knew Devers' personality and knew that this should probably have been something that they worked around a little bit more effectively, and I think that is important to know your personnel. So I think they created it built and built and built, and I think that clearly it was not very harmonious, behind closed doors there. And that's not something that they wanted from their highest paid player who, is going to supposedly is, with what comes with the price tag is being the face of the franchise. And the report was that, he wasn't fulfilling the duties that come with that. And I can understand that side of it. But the interesting thing is this, they do kind of have a logjam. Of course, Devers is the best hitter there, but if you already have a little bit of an issue internally with him, and whether whoever's fault it is, and how I think it takes 2 to tango, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the front office. But still, it became unsalvageable. At least that's what they say. This is a contract that is not necessarily an asset, whether you think it's underwater, as some are saying, or not. That's fair, but it's definitely not a great value deal, right? This isn't the Corbin Carroll pre-arb extension, so. You have a little bit of a logjam. It's money that you probably wouldn't mind getting off of going into a free agency where there's a lot of players out there that you could potentially spend on. You could also see an Alex Bregman opt out who you want to keep. You could also try to pre-arb extend into Roman Anthony if you see him get going a little bit and love what he's doing, or Marcelo Meyer. We'll see. But you have Julio Abreu coming off the IL, and you have an outfield situation that for the last month and a half, we've been talking about how the Red Sox are going to somehow need to move Jarren Duran, right? We're firing up the Jarren Duran trade machine. Jarren Duran's under team control. Jarren Duran doesn't have internal issues with the team right now. And now you are able to keep Jarren. I see people saying, oh, well, now they're going to trade Jarren Duran. Personally, I don't know, but personally, I think this makes Jarren Duran way less likely to be moved. I think they just solved some of this issue because now you can keep Ceddanne Rafael on center field, where he can go be one of the best center fielders in the sport defensively and continue to hit a little bit better. And you can now figure out which of the outfielders you want to put in the DH spot, which you don't like the DH spot being clogged. So that part I can kind of understand, right? Because if you're trading one or the other, again, if they're going to reinvest that money, and they haven't earned the benefit of the doubt to say that they're going to do that, but if they're going to reinvest that money, I think it makes the move make a lot more sense because you just made your roster a lot more malleable. And I think you solved an issue without trading a player that I don't know if they were ever going to get the full value that they really should get on a Jarren Duran, who hasn't been great this year. I understand. But just to show you the barrier of offensive output that's required from a DH to accumulate WAR. Jarren Duran's having a down offensive year compared to last year and not playing center field. And he has a 1.2 WAR with a 103 WRC plus. Rafael Devers is raking, and he's at 1.9. So yeah, I know it's not just a WAR equation, but with years of control and a guy that's can play center if you needed it to, play all the outfield spots, I can understand saying I'll take the guy with years of control that I probably wasn't going to get full value on because he's not playing at the best of his abilities right now, and we don't have internal issues with, over the guy that we have all these issues with is already a DH with a decade almost left on the deal, and that part I can kind of understand.
Okay, so here's where we disagree. So yes, were there internal problems between the two? Absolutely. I put 75% of the blame on the Red Sox, and I put 25% of blame on Rafael Devers. That's Maybe fair. You disagree about that.
No, I think
that would be the split. Because the reason there are internal issues is because of the Red Sox.
The way they handled the situation.
You signed Rafael Devers to an 11-year deal worth over $300 million, and you told him that he was going to be the third baseman. Now, that was Chaim Bloom. This is Craig Breslow's team. But what did Craig Breslow do? He signed Alex Bregman then without telling Rafael Devers. So what you do is you're already funneling in a situation where if you know Rafael Devers, which you should as the GM, he might not handle it all that well. So you're already creating that. Now, did Devers handle it well? No, he didn't handle it all that well off the field. On the field, it didn't affect him for a second. Now he got off to a really rough start, and yet now is still one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, even after that rough start. So it never affected him on the field. Jared Carabas went on MLB Network, and he said that he spoke to a lot of the Red Sox players, and they never mentioned anything about him affecting the locker room. So he wasn't affecting the team on the field with his play, and he wasn't affecting the locker room at all.
They're going to go out of their way to tell Jared Carabas that Rafael Devers is ruining their clubhouse.
We haven't heard anything. Like, nothing has come out. I mean, maybe they would have
mentioned because your team added Alex Bregman. You're probably not an asset to the clubhouse.
I just can't. Is Rafael Devers affecting Lucas Giolito on the mound? I don't think Rafael Devers sitting there on the bench is affecting the Red Sox other players.
No, I don't think so too much.
I haven't seen him pouting. I haven't seen him on the field.
That's supposed to be your face of the franchise player.
I understand, but they have a lot of faces. Nobody's watching the Red Sox and being like, oh, I'm not a big fan of the Red Sox now because our face of the franchise said a couple quotes a few years ago, if we're looking at the Red Sox in a few years, I don't think he's any lesser of a face of the franchise.
Yeah, but there's a level of responsibility that comes with being the face of the franchise. I know, but it's probably not being pouty and going through the media and saying things that he said. And
that did happen.
He's saying that outwardly. Think about how he's acting internally. And if you're having bad exchanges with staff members and the front office and maybe your manager or whatever it may be, that can't be happening with your $300 million face of the franchise player who's supposedly the goal is to lead you to a World Series title.
I think
you already had this roster headache that you needed to try to sift through. So again, If it's him or Jaron Duran, for financial and just clubhouse general reasons and just sanity reasons of having to deal with it, I kind of get it. That side of it, I actually can kind of understand.
I think that part is overblown. I don't think that's as big of a deal as they're making it out in these reports, right? Like
Of course they're going to come out and say, yeah, they're going to reveal a lot more and be like, and want to play up that.
And you know what? Maybe
I'm sure.
And maybe when we get more information, like let's say it was really bad and Devers was like horrible in the locker room. If those things come out, I will walk it back. We'll talk about it on the Just Baseball show. I will admit I am wrong. But at this current moment in time, the reports don't seem bad enough where Rafael Devers' relationship with Craig Breslow, like, I don't care. If Rafael Devers is raking, that's really all that matters. Manny Ramirez was one of the best Red Sox in recent memory. He never had good relationships with anybody. But you know what? It didn't matter because when he came up in 2004 and the Red Sox were winning a World Series and he was amazing, do you think anybody cared what his relationship was with the general manager? I think these are all just like little things. Again, if it comes out and it's worse, like he was a locker room cancer and all these different things. But from what I am hearing, and again, it's minimal. If it wasn't affecting the locker room, if it wasn't affecting the players on the field, and it's just a bad relationship with the general manager, and we're talking about a logjam and potentially other players.
I don't think it's probably just a general manager. It's probably just the way he's carrying himself day to day, like around people. But again, I'm looking at the Jaron Duran side of things too. If you're moving him or Duran, I think that has to add to the equation here too.
I mean, I don't want to move any of them. Like we're the Red Sox.
You would have had to. You have to do something. How are you creating space?
I mean,
Jaron Duran. That's why all the talk has been Jaron Duran trades. So
I'm trading Rafaela. I mean, I'm not trading Rafael Devers.
I don't know how many teams are lining up to take a Cedon Rafaela.
We're just talking about his WAR, the fact that he is one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball.
But he's just settling in offensively.
You wouldn't want him on your team? I think he would be a pretty damn good trade chip. Willie Abreu wouldn't be a good trade chip.
Again, like you'd be kind of selling low there, and that's a player with 5 years of control.
And you could get a ton for him.
Maybe, yeah, you could, but
you would get a lot for Willie Abreu, and I think you would get a decent bit for Cedon Rafaela. And it's not like this package, Aram, is that amazing either. I mean, Kyle Harrison, we think can be a good pitcher. We'll see what happens with James Tibbs. I think Jordan Hicks maybe factors into their bullpen. And who knows if Jose Bayo even makes the major leagues. So it's not like they got this incredible package. They got a fine package. I'm not saying it's a bad package at all. When it first came across, I'm like, okay, I get it. Did they win the trade? Was it this amazing haul? Because they're also taking on $25 million from Jordan Hicks as well. So it's not even the Red Sox or the Giants, are not even paying the full $250 because they're taking off $25 from Jordan Hicks. So I don't view it as this amazing package that even propels this team forward. And if Tibbs becomes something, isn't Tibbs an outfielder?
You're not even worried about that. That's the best player that you could get from them. I mean, you weren't going to get Bryce Eldridge. That's the next best player. So
when Tibbs comes back up, then is Roman Anthony expendable? Is Willie
Abreu? No, that's a stupid argument. Come on.
I'm just saying the Red Sox have been doing this now.
They got Yafri Rodriguez as well. You're going to stockpile good prospects and then you can trade them. Like, that's silly. He's in high A. Like the point is that it's the best player that they could get, and they're trying to maximize a return there. And they weren't going to get Bryce Eldridge. Were they going to say, no, don't give us James Tibbs? We can't have another outfielder.
No, that's not what I meant at all. I'm just saying that the overall package is not so incredible that, and then on top of it, that they didn't shop him. That was reported. I mean, that's not a great look. Where it's like there was one team. And it was like, all right, we're just going to do it with the Giants, a team with not a great.
I don't think there's a lot of teams lining up to take on that contract right now. Just like being totally honest.
We don't know because he didn't shop.
But there's not a lot of teams that are going to do that. And it's kind of one of those situations where it's optically tough. If you shop, it's going to start to get out a little bit. And they'd apparently been talking about it for a couple of weeks. But again, I think the biggest part of this is they are eliminating. If you traded Willier, if you trade these other guys, you're not clearing that money as well. And
why do they need to clear money? Why do they need to clear money? They're the Boston Red Sox. They're one of the biggest franchises.
I think Craig Breslow looked at a contract that he didn't give out and said, this contract, I don't like it. And he figured, hey, well, I don't have any attachment to this. I want to build a sustainable winner here. Look, I'm not saying it's going to go down as a great move, but I can understand the move because Breslow didn't give him this contract. Breslow clearly doesn't like him, and it didn't get any better. And they have a roster situation that needed to be sorted out. Is trading your best hitter the best way to do it? Probably not. But it has this money attached. We've talked long about the financial constraints that come with weirdly being a Red Sox general manager right now. That was what happened to Chaim Bloom as well. And I do wonder if there's some limitation still placed at the top from John Henry on a Craig Breslow, who probably wants to spend this upcoming free agency, wants to do some more things, and maybe they wouldn't have had that much more budget to do it. Who knows? We'll see. But I think it's important to note that this is a different general manager that has no attachment to a Rafael Devers, and actually had more of a detachment with the way things went. Again, the fact that you can pull and I even sent out a few feelers to people in spots with other teams, and they don't love the contract. They don't think it's an albatross, but they don't love it. I don't think teams are jumping at the opportunity to take on a DH for 10 years.
But here's the thing. Can I just say one more thing about the DH spot? Because we keep saying he's a DH. The only reason he's a DH is because the Red Sox signed Alex Bregman.
He sucks at defense.
No, he's not unplayable over there. He can play third base. He's not great. He's not going to win any Gold Gloves. He's not even average, but he's not an unbelievable hole that cannot be filled. Like he's a below average third baseman defensively. He's got a good arm. He doesn't have that much range, but the reason we're calling him a DH is because the Red Sox signed Alex Bregman. If they didn't sign Alex Bregman, Rafael Devers would be their starting third baseman.
Why did they sign Alex Bregman? Because they wanted to.
It doesn't seem like Breslow. It doesn't seem like Breslow likes Devers that much and doesn't really care about him, which I think is not a good look for him. And I think this trade is going to come back to bite him, like some other trades that the Red Sox have made. Because
do you know what his defensive run saves are? Do you know in his career?
I know I know. Earlier in his career, he was horrific.
No, he actually was as bad as ever last year. And the year before that.
What was his defensive run save? Do you think that he just cannot be a third baseman ever again?
I think he's a legitimate like liability at third base. Yes.
I don't think so.
-9, -9, -6, -13. First career, it's -62 defensive run saved, -28 outs above average. It's one of the worst qualified defenders over that span in the entire league.
Derek Jeter made a career and had -100. I'm just kidding. No, but what I will say about the Devers situation. Oh, relax. What I will say about the Devers situation is, I think that he can still play third base. He's not going to on the Giants, obviously, because they have Matt Chapman, and he wasn't going to with the Red Sox because they have Alex Bregman. Do I think he is unplayable at third? No.
Who's he playing third base for?
Well. There is a lot of teams out there who aren't even close to having a bat like his. Like, if you told me Rafael Devers was going to my Yankees and he was playing third base, I don't care if he boots a ball a game. Put that bat in my lineup every single day of the week. Like, no matter what, that bat is too important. Like, yes, is he going to make, errors? Is he going to be one of the worst defensive third basemen in baseball? Yeah. Do I care? Not really, because the bat is so elite, right? Still at 28 years old. So I think that just reducing him down to DH and saying he can never play again, he will never play again because they have Matt Chapman, of course. But if he went somewhere else and he would play third base, I think he'd be below average. Like, I don't think that
worst DRS in Major League Baseball since 2019.
Yeah, I mean, he plays every day.
Well, he hasn't played this year. If he played this year, he'd probably be second worst. And it's around the same amount of innings as the others. I think it's pretty fair to say that someone that's that bad defensively is probably a DH. So, but again, I think it's optically not a good situation for the Red Sox. But for Breslow, optics probably aren't the priority. The priority is he's trying to keep a job. He just started taking it. Obviously, he just got it. But he needs to build a sustainable winner. And if he feels like getting out from a contract for a player that they don't really have a defensive spot for, they have a logjam elsewhere, and they're trying to sort through that of all very controllable players. And again, the situation is not the best in terms of, I think, the off the field stuff, behind closed doors. I could understand moving the $300 million player that you were shoehorning defensively, and that was clogging your DH spot. Clogging's an unfair word because he's also your best hitter, but you're either moving a player with 4 to 5 years of control, or you're moving a player with a $300 million almost contract that you have issues with. And I think that decision can get kind of easy for a guy who didn't give him the contract.
What happens if Bregman opts out, who's playing third for the Red Sox next year?
Well, now they got a lot of money to throw at him, don't they?
Throw at Bregman again?
Yeah.
We'll see.
And does he opt out now after being, hurt? We'll see. I don't know. It's a pretty favorable contract. But again, if he opts out, like now they got a lot of money to throw at him to make sure they keep him. And that is another interesting aspect. He's been playing out of his mind when he was on the field as well. And I think you can make a case that for the next couple of years, he could be more valuable, Bregman.
But do you think, all right, so the Red Sox have all this money to again throw at Bregman. Is that the person they're going to throw money at? Because are they going to pay Duran? Right?
They don't have to for a while. I think that's why they moved the guy that they are currently paying, because they don't have to pay these other guys for a couple years, other than maybe a Bregman if he opts out. And if he does, now you got more money to throw at him, and they would still have money left over. So that's the interesting part of it. But again, if they don't do that, if they don't invest, then yeah, absolutely berate them, rip them to shreds. If they don't sign any more players, if they are not extremely active and this offseason, absolutely. I think you should be livid if you're a Red Sox fan. And I think it makes the move make even less sense. But I think if you're looking at a roster construction situation, there's a very fair argument to be made that is not the best allocation of finances, and that it could be allocated elsewhere to, I think, you could get more bang for your buck. As good as Devers is, I think when you zoom out, that is the part that makes sense to me. If I'm trying to construct the best roster possible, getting out from that contract and being able to potentially play with that money is not the worst situation in the world. And it's different for the Giants, which I love it for them, because they've tried to sign different free agents and they're trying to put a team together, and they just need bats, right? They just need good players, and they're having this great year, and you don't get an opportunity to get a bat like this very often, as Buster Posey said. Great. They just need good bats. I think the situation's a little bit different for the Red Sox, where you have to maybe look at different aspects on how they can improve this team. And I think there's different ways they can do that. I think this is a really good player that you don't want to move, but he was, I think he didn't fit this team very well anymore. And that's the tough part.
Yeah. I mean, no, I get where you're saying. Like, if I'm Breslow and this is not my guy, and I feel that I can allocate the funds more effectively, then I can trade Rafael Devers. I just look at it.
Bregman's a better player.
I just look at it. Whoa. You think Bregman is better than, that's up for debate. Whatever.
158 WRC plus, and he plays good defense.
I mean, yeah, he's hurt, but whatever. They're both very, very good players.
Well, he's hurt right now, but yeah, he played 51 games and he's playing at a very high level. And
I mean, last year too, we could go over the offensive stats. I mean, we really want to get into a Bregman Devers debate. We got to talk about Omaha. We got to talk about a bunch of different stuff.
I know, but I think it's, in terms of, again, what fits best for the team, it's interesting. And if you look at WAR the last several years, he probably has the edge. But
I think what fits good for the team is when you have your best hitter on the field. And so to recap everything kind of I've been thinking too, is that this trade was not the Mookie trade. This is not outlandish. This is not you call for Breslow's job like you can't even believe it. I'm just saying it was shocking. The optics were really, really poor, especially for a franchise who has traded stars in the past. And yes, if they are able to allocate those funds in better position and the Red Sox are right back to competing next year, great. But here's the thing. The Red Sox have been mediocre for the last 5 years. And their fans, you bring in Crochet, you bring in Bregman, you bring in Buehler. This is the year with Roman Anthony coming up where they can figure out this log jam in order to win baseball games. They were finally getting hot. And I know they were already talking about this trade a while ago, but they were getting hot. Clearly, this team was working, at least in the short term. And maybe if they can build off of that, they could really compete in a wide open American League. And now this year, I'm not going to count them out completely. The starting pitching has looked better, right? Roman Anthony I think is only going to get better and better. Wilyer Abreu is still a great bat. So I'm not completely counting them out. But are they a better team with Rafael Devers? Absolutely. And now without Devers, I think a lot of us are like, yeah, maybe the Red Sox, it's not their year. So is it their year next year?
I
Is
don't
it the
think it was
year
ever going to
after
happen this
that?
year.
I don't know. I'm not buying that completely just because the American League is so wide open. If they were in the National League, absolutely not. But there's nobody that's really taking charge of the American League outside of the first place teams. But with that win, they are now tied for the last place of the wild card. Like they could have made the playoffs this year, right? Which they haven't done in a while. So for me, if I'm a Red Sox fan right now, I am furious because we traded our best hitter. But I will take a step back and realize, okay, this is not Chaim Bloom. This is a different general manager in Craig Breslow. Let's see what he does. Let's see what his plan is. And I agree. It is a wait and see to see what he does with those funds. The thing is, I just feel like the reason he was traded is because of a disagreement with the general manager and all of these the face of the franchise stuff. I think that is overblown. If Breslow would just to come out and be like, you know what, I think that we could be a better team without Rafael Devers' talent. Here's why. Okay.
I think
But
he
I think
basically said that when he signed Alex Bregman, and I think he kind of showed that now, right? I think he said, "Hey,
but everything that has come out has been about the personality stuff and their relationship. Again, I'm just working with what we've heard so far from all of these reports.
Yeah, I think when you sign a third baseman and move him off his position with a new general manager, it's probably saying, "Hey, I don't think Devers playing third base for us is our best foot forward." That's what he believed. So
Yeah, I
think, but it's going to be fascinating because if they don't do more, right? Like if they don't add more to this roster in terms of signing players and things like that, then yeah, it's a pathetic move. But I'm assuming that Breslow is going to use that opportunity to reinvest and leverage the fact that they have one of the most talented plus controllable outfields in Major League Baseball. And it's an enviable position in that regard. Real quick, too, on the Giants, though.
Yeah.
I think
I'm in love with it if I'm the Giants. I mean, they needed a bat. This is awesome.
Objectively, an incredible deal for them, right? Because I don't think you lose sleep over Kyle Harrison, though. Yeah, that's probably a guy that they could use, but I just don't think it was going to happen there. And he's a great change of scenery candidate. I think he's going to actually turn into a better arm after this move because I think a new set of eyes working on the arsenal, and he did take a step forward this year. But they needed bats, and we were just talking about it. I'm like, with Matt Chapman out, you need Willy Adames to step up. You still need him to do that. He still needs to step up. But my goodness, does this stretch things out a little bit more now? With Jung-Hoo Lee, Elliot Ramos, and you hope Adames swinging it better. With Adames in the fold now with Devers in the fold now, and then you're going to get Chapman back, all of a sudden that's a front five that can bang.
Yeah.
And that's exciting because with the Giants, it's different. They need bats. Like they just need any bats that they can get. Like they were starting Dominic, they still are. Starting Dominic Smith. This elevates them so much, and they'd probably would have handed this contract out to him in 2 seconds if he was on the free agent market. So I like this move for them, and I love seeing the Buster Posey be aggressive, and it's hard to argue against what he's done so far.
It's got to be. I mean, Buster Posey has just got to be the biggest legend in San Francisco history at this point. I mean, the fact is he was such a legend as a player, multiple-time World Series champion, and then becomes the GM in his first season and really starts bringing over pieces.
Takes them to the playoffs somehow or this year. Like he actually is. He needs to have he needs to have multiple statues. He needs player statue and then executive statue.
I think where all of this stems from too is I am such a huge fan of Devers. I think that's kind of where I'm coming from in this, where I have just always thought, and maybe it's because he literally owns my franchise.
He tortures
you. He is our owner. He destroys Garrett Cole. He's just a big time hitter. And, he's already got a World Series ring under his belt. I know it's just his second year back in 2018, but he's not afraid of the moment. And in big time games, the Giants are facing the Padres. They're facing the Dodgers. They're facing the Diamondbacks. There's always been so much magic already with that team. Like he's a guy who will just catapult that magic into the stratosphere, right? He is a big time player. And that's again why it's kind of hard for me to realize why the Red Sox let him go.
Oh,
Because
I'm
I
sure Red
think
Sox
he is
fans are going to be ripping me in the YouTube comments. I'm sure.
such a special bat. No, but I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think you have a lot of faith in Breslow. And what we were even talking about before is he needs to prove it. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he is. I think if like they took an IQ test among all general managers, he might be near the top. And I think he has the right plan. And I got really fired up when he brought in Crochet. I was so jealous. I thought bringing in Garrett Crochet, giving him the money immediately, I thought that was a perfect move. Obviously loved him bringing in Bueller, loved him bringing in Bregman, even though it created that drama because that just was such a good fit. So he has done nothing until this. But the thing is, he hasn't really done anything yet. So that's why until proven otherwise, I'm not just automatically going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I know Red Sox fans aren't even close. They want his head on a stick, but I agree with you. I think there's somewhat of a middle ground here, and it's going to be hard for the Red Sox fans to reconcile this. It's going to be really tough. But at the end of the day, we'll see what he does. And the clock's ticking. The clock is ticking.
No doubt. And that's the big thing is you better do the right things after this or else the pressure's on. But I will say I respect it because he knew this was going to be an optics nightmare.
Yeah, no, he's got some nuts on him.
He's got a set of cojones. And
yeah, he does.
We'll see, especially in a market like Boston. So that's why I'd like to think that he has a plan, but we'll see.
No,
it'll be fun to circle back on.
He's too smart for me not to think he has a plan. I just keep thinking back to, will John Henry allow him to operate that plan? And also I keep thinking to myself, like, all right, who did this? Was it Breslow going to Henry and saying, I'm not a fan of this contract, here's why, I think we'd be better off in the future without him? Or was this John Henry saying, I don't want to pay him anymore? Because if it's John Henry saying, I don't want to pay him anymore, that's way worse.
Yeah, that is way worse.
That is way worse.
Way worse. I agree
with
that.
If it is Breslow, because then it's like, all right, this is step one of his plan. Let's see if it works. Now, it might not work, but at least he has a plan. If it's just, we got to get out of this money, that is a nightmare.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. If it's like the joke that I cracked on X, which is like Liverpool needed a new midfielder. If that's actually the deal we've got going on here, then that's not good.
So we will see. You want to talk a little bit of Omaha?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Let's do it. All right. Before that, our first break. All right. Now it's time to talk some College World Series. Aram and I are in Omaha. We saw the first couple of games, and there were some great MLB prospects scattered throughout some of these teams, and the games themselves were just so fantastic. And I want to start with Oregon State taking on Louisville. Oregon State wins on a walk-off hit by Gavin Turley on Friday, 4-3. But Patrick Forbes, 5 1/3, 7 hits, 3 earned, 10 punchies. Dax Whitney, 5 1/3, 3 hits, no earned, 9 strikeouts. And Iva Arquette, who's projected to go probably in the first 10 picks.
Yeah,
shortstop, huge dude, went 3 for 5 with 2 runs scored. Now 2 of them were infield hits, but he is flashing the speed. And because we all know that he can hit the living crap out of the baseball and he can play shortstop, but he also has plenty of speed with a guy as big as he is. But I want to focus on those 2 starting pitchers because Dax Whitney, I mean, he comes over to Oregon State and he's so young and he's flashing just this incredible curveball. And for a guy that young and that big of a spot to be throwing strikes as consistently as he was, being in the zone, and those Louisville hitters knowing he's going to be in the zone and still whiffing in the zone was so impressive. I also want to talk about Patrick Forbes because he is nasty. But Dax Whitney, let's start with him.
Freshman. And I was like lined up behind home plate. I posted some videos of it. Like, it's a short arm release. He fills up the zone, as you mentioned, and just the poise as a freshman, but also like the pitch mix. He's got a fastball, a curveball, a changeup, a sweeper, and he was throwing all of them. And the fastball had some sneaky carry. The changeup, the feel for that was so impressive. And then again, that curveball at like 73, you think it was too slow, but from that short arm release, it was a late break. It was sharp. And so seeing where he's already at, and he averaged like 93 in that outing, but I think, is a guy that easily could tick up a little bit more. And as he matures, here's a guy that could be the top arm in the class when he's a junior. I really do think he's 6'4", 190. I was floored with what he was doing. I thought that was such an impressive outing. A 5 1/3 of 1 unearned and 9 Ks and 1 walk. And that big stage as a freshman who just got better and better and better as the year progressed. Like, this is a guy to watch at Oregon State that I think without a doubt will be a first round pick when it's his draft year.
And speaking about the short arm delivery, Patrick Forbes just throwing 96, 97 mile an hour, tailing bullets with an excellent slider too. He's probably going to be a first round pick, or at least I hope he will, because I would love a team to grab a hold of that arm because the stuff is just outrageous. And yeah, he got hit a little bit by a really good Oregon State offense, right? So, they have Iva Arquette and plenty of other guys. So, they have Gavin Turley, who's also probably going to get picked in the first couple of rounds in this MLB draft. I thought he was also really impressive. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch in college baseball just because he's so damn nasty.
I mean, the fastball, he was throwing something that we're getting, north of 20 vert at 96, 97 miles an hour. And that slider might be one of the best sliders in the country.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. There was a couple that I posted that just backdoor, just freezing guys, but then back legging left-handed hitters, righties, good luck. You're just not going to have a shot against that. And he's going to need to find a third pitch as a pro, but a lot of players. This is a guy that I could see your Yankees taking, right? Because what the Yankees love to do is they take guys that can spin it, that have the ability, that maybe the numbers, even though Forbes has had good numbers, but the numbers aren't as good as that the talent would suggest. They don't let them debut right after the draft. They have them go into their pitching, development program, and then they throw the next year and they look totally different. I think if he lands in the right org, and I'm assuming the right orgs are going to target him, he was a guy that missed a little bit of time, so didn't fully get to build up his draft stock the way that I think he had probably hoped. But I think that outing did a lot for him. I think just the way that he finished the year. You remember Cade Horton, who the way that he finished the year really bolstered his stock. I think you look at Gavin Williams, the way that he finished the year at ECU really bolstered his stock. And I think Forbes, you could make that case as well with the way that he finished the year. I mean, his final 3 outings, if he doesn't have another one here, 32 strikeouts in 17 innings. Like, this is a special arm. And maybe there's some reliever risk, but shit, if he's a reliever, he's going to be a damn good one too. So that's a guy that there's no way he slips beyond the second round. And I think he's pitching his way into first round consideration.
You know me pretty well, don't you? You know I want him. That's who I'm IDing for the Yankees at the end of the first round. Like, I want that arm in our organization. Man. I think it's an electric arm. Let's move on to UCLA versus Murray State. UCLA wins 6-4. A couple of just quick takeaways from here, because we didn't see much from Rock Chalowski except that he was bunting on his own accord.
Yeah. And the manager, John Savage, their manager, after the game, and in the press conference, somebody asked him, why'd you put that on with the potential 1-1 pick?
Next year? It was just to give people the context of the situation. It was runners on first and third, 1 out, right? And he is the best hitter in their lineup. And I
think you make the case the best hitter in the tournament.
He is definitely one of them. And he's bunting like a safety squeeze.
It worked, but
made absolutely no sense. It didn't work. It didn't score the run.
But he could have hit a 3-run shot. So that was the interesting part. We were like, John Savage needs to be sent to the sun. We thought it came from the manager, right? No way a guy that's had 23 or 26 bombs is going to be doing that. I tip of the cap to a kid that's selfless and able to bunt. Most guys that are that good, and I'm sure Rock Chalowski's been good his entire life, don't even know how to bunt. So that part was cool, but that was shocking. And that's been the one really funny thing being out here in Omaha, like a lot of bunts. I get it. It's really hard to leave the yard. There's so much that can come of putting pressure on the defense, but a little bit too much bunting in my opinion. But
way too much bunting.
It was cool to see Rock. I will say too, that Murray State team, man, like they're not just some team that lucked their way out here. They played a good game. They battled, and they lost 6-4. UCLA, that team, I was a little bit lower on them coming into the tournament. They've got players. They no doubt got players. And Murray State did not let up. And I mean, they were down 6-0, and they added 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, 2 in the 8th. and put some pressure on that Bruins team. And I mean, you're talking about older guys. Some of these guys are Kyle Harrison's age.
Yes.
Like John Hogart is 23. Dustin Mercer, I'm pretty sure it was Dustin Mercer who said this, but it was either Dustin Mercer or Carson. It was Dustin Mercer. Their outfielder, who's 23, he's had a phenomenal year at Murray State. He has 930 OPS. He had a phenomenal game. He had 2 hits, walked twice, made a sick throw to get a guy out at first base from right field that rounded the bag too aggressively. And he's like, yeah, I'm smiling all the time. The post-game presser after they lost, I'm smiling all the time because I know no matter what, this is the end of my baseball career. I'm like, man, I respect it. He's ready to, for the next phase of life. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got an undrafted free agent opportunity and he's basically saying, no, I'm good. I'm enjoying this ride. And I don't know, there's something special about that where you have some other players who I kind of see them maybe get, on the brink of elimination, and I'm sure they care, but there's also that in the back pocket of, I'm going to go get drafted in the first couple rounds in a few weeks here, in a month here, and I got plenty more baseball in my life. So I really enjoyed watching Murray State play and the fight they put up.
Important note, their coach does not cut the grass on the field.
No, that he was I'm glad you mentioned that. He clarified. Dan Skirka does not cut the grass. Whoever spread that rumor online, he's like, I don't. I actually kind of wish I did because I could just put my headphones on and chill out. I don't have time to do that. But the crazy thing is Murray State, they had asked Coach Skirka during the pre-game or the pre-tournament press conference. I sat through all of them. The crazy thing is they don't use their whole 11.7 allotment of scholarships. That is nuts. So that the dichotomy here of teams that have their full allotment of scholarships plus more plus NIL, Murray State's not even able to use their full scholarship number, and I'm assuming that comes from the school. So that part is pretty nuts. He also teaches a class at Murray State. I just that's why I love college sports.
Moving over to LSU versus Arkansas. Cade Anderson was the story here. He was just incredible. 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 7 punchies. On the other side, Zach Root, who's also expected to probably go in the second round of this upcoming MLB draft. He's ranked number 36 on our top 300 draft prospects. Again, you can find that on justbaseball.com. And then came Gabe Gackle. 6 innings, 3 hits, 10 punchies with only 1 earned run. Kept Arkansas in the game, but Cade Anderson kept them out of the game. He was just, I took Arkansas in our futures. I took him in that game. And as soon as that first inning went, I was like, this is going to be an issue. And I was, sitting right next to, our head of partnerships, Colby Olson. And I'm just saying that, if you blink, he's already at 2 strikes.
Yep.
Getting ahead, electric fastball. It's not like high 90s, but it's 95 to 20 inches. And then he's dropping just this bang of a breaking ball. And that's arguably the best offense in the country that he made look like a D2 team.
Yeah. I mean, they just looked uncomfortable the whole time. And they had faced him a month ago.
Yep.
Like, they had just seen him. It doesn't matter, though, because he just walked in. What I love and why I think Cade Anderson is a potential top 5 pick is he had a bad outing last time out. Like, he's going into the biggest game of his life off of a start where it's funny, bad outing. He still went 7 innings, but 7 innings of 6 runs, 6 earned runs. And so you could feel that pressure maybe and run into an Arkansas lineup that is as good as any in the country and maybe not throw your best game. He did. He literally threw his best game. I was so impressed by, you mentioned feeling like it was 2 strikes immediately. The feel to get ahead, but the feel for his entire arsenal. Yeah. That slower curve, that was a banger. The changeup looked great. They had the sliders, that bridge pitch at 85. This is a guy that, like, if I'm a team that maybe doesn't like some of the high school guys that are there at 3 or 4, the 3rd or 4th pick, and I can maybe work out a deal with Cade Anderson, I would take him and sleep like a baby that night because, like we talked about before the College World Series, when we were previewing the top prospects, I said I think Cade Anderson can be the guy that debuts first out of that class. Feel real good about that one now too.
Yeah. So good. I wouldn't be so shocked if he's the number 1 overall pick. I think right now the favorite, on BetMGM is Ethan Holiday, but
you can cut a deal. Like, you can cut a 1-1 deal and move him up quick. And I don't think that would be the craziest thing in the world, but also Gabe Gackle or Gackle.
Gabe Gackle. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, oh,
yeah,
he was
he
throwing
was
gas, and he was pitching like pissed off. Like he was like, "My team is down. I'm going to destroy
6
LSU."
innings, 10 Ks, just out. It was like he thought if he struck out enough guys, it would give them runs.
Yes,
It was
yes.
it
It's
was
like,
amazing.
if I just keep and then he gets pulled, and I did think Dave Van Horn has gotten a lot of crap because he's never Arkansas hasn't won a title. And I thought the decision to take out Root was interesting. I assume they're now saving it, but it did feel like he was coaching a little bit scared. And
Yeah,
that's kind of been his MO a little bit. But then it's so funny. Then Gackle came in and just like blew the doors off LSU. So it ended up being a good move because now Root can go, the next game. But at the end of the day, you did lose. But, what can you do when your team, well, you can't coach Arkansas bats to just
no.
hit Cade Anderson,
And I
right? So
think
it's
he
not
knew
fully on him. I just
he
thought that
said
was
that in the
weird.
post-game presser. He was like, I knew that runs were going to be at a premium, and I saw the game at 3 runs looking like it could get away there. And so I wanted to try to stop the bleeding because 3 runs was going to be steep. And he was right about that.
He was right.
But they didn't score the 3. But they're going to potentially, you assume, I hope not, as I want to see Murray State keep going. I don't want to see Mercer's career end just yet. But you assume they win that game. They'll have Root probably ready to go, as you mentioned, for the next game after that.
Last one, Coastal Carolina wins their 25th straight. They're 1 game from the final. They beat Oregon State 6-2. But the story here is Jacob Morrison, 7 2/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, 7 punchies. You were freaking out about him on Twitter. I love to see it.
Dude, I was having a blast watching this
Yeah,
guy throw.
he was so good.
It was one, he just was mowing guys down and just aggressive and threw 110 something pitches. It's a high release, like 6'5", but he was throwing fastballs that were getting 22 vert from that high release point. And then another guy that's getting crazy break on this downward, breaking ball, his curveball as well. And then the slider horizontally. I love the players that have, it's the fastball at 93, 94, then the slider at 85, then the curveball at 75, 76, and then the changeup at 82, 83. Like you have all these different speeds that he can give you. And he's getting vertical action and horizontal. He can go to all 4 quadrants. He's somebody that I think is going to fly up the draft rankings a little bit more with his strong finish too. He's 6'8", and 6'5" release from a 6'8" guy is actually a little bit more working down the mound than you think. And then getting that plus vert, filling up the zone like that, and that's a good lineup. An Oregon State lineup that, which talks about, is tough. And he went right after them. I think this is a guy that could be high floor innings eater. I think he could be pitching his way into early second round. Who knows? Maybe late first round consideration. I think he's one of the more underrated arms in the draft.
Absolutely. And this Coastal team is just streaking.
They're good, man. They can play ball.
And they can win the whole thing. We'll see. It's expected that it's going to be Coastal versus the winner of Arkansas LSU, because you expect Arkansas to take care of business in order to get back to a game to play LSU. But you never know. You never know. So we'll see. But Coastal can hang with anybody, even these 2 juggernauts in Arkansas and LSU, and maybe Arkansas is out early. Who knows? We're going to continue to update you here on the Just Baseball Show, as well as On the Clock, our college baseball podcast, which I highly recommend checking out. Tomorrow, it's going to be Jack and I, and we are going to be doing some weekend headlines. Zach Wheeler retiring, Aaron Savali trade. There was plenty of stuff over the weekend that we did not cover in this episode because Aram and I had to hash it out over Rafael Devers. I think it was a good conversation, both sides kind of the table. But even though I do think that they will end up regretting it, I understand. And we'll see if Breslow has a plan, but if it's Henry, that is just horrible. So we will see.
You'll be hearing from me then too.
It's going to be an interesting story. And at the end of the day, like, the Giants got a lot better, and that story is kind of getting buried with all the Red Sox drama. But if you're a Giants fan right now, you got to be over the moon. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Aram and I are recording in the wee hours of the night with barely any internet in our Omaha Airbnb. So again, hopefully everybody enjoyed. Rate and review. Best way to support the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, like, comment on YouTube. And if you want to join the best baseball group chat in the world, you can join our Discord. You can find that link in the episode description. Also get your Just Baseball merch. Of course, I'm rocking the athletic tee and my hat's on backwards. Arms rocking the polo and the white trucker hat, new to the Just Baseball merch store. Go get yours in the episode description. For Arm Layton, I'm Peter Apple. Jack and I will see you tomorrow. With that, thank you, everybody.